Good morning. Welcome to the December edition of the Public Safety Media Briefing for the City of Winston-Salem. My name is Mel Sadler. I'm the Director of Emergency Management for the City of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. Today we'll hear from the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Emergency Management Office. We'll hear from the Winston-Salem Fire Department, and they're going to touch on several topics, including the Battle of the Badge, Holiday Blood Drive, Holiday Fire Safety, and active shooter response. Also, we'll hear from the Winston-Salem Fire Department, and they're going to speak on a variety of subjects. First, we'll have the presentation from the Office of Emergency Management. There's an important piece of federal legislation that affects most industries in the United States, including, of course, Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. Annually, they have to submit an inventory of the chemicals, hazardous materials that are stored on their site for the preceding year. That filing period is between January 1st and March 1st of each year. Robert, there have been several changes made in that program, and Robert is going to highlight those changes for the benefit of those who are affected by it. We'll have our Emergency Management Coordinator, Robert Reese.
Thank you, Director Sadler. Good morning, everyone. I'm Robert Reese, an Emergency Management Coordinator with the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Emergency Management Office. As Director Sadler mentioned, I'm going to talk about the Tier 2 reporting process. For any questions, I can be contacted at rreece@cityofwsfire.org or also in the office at 336-661-6440. Most of this information was provided to us from a technological hazards branch manager with the North Carolina Emergency Management Office. And his name is Matt Cummins. And we've also provided a little bit of insight to what applies to our county as well. Okay, first we'll talk about the Tier 2 basics. Tier 2 reporting is required under the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act. It requires the annual report facility chemical inventory that is due each January 1st through March the 1st. E-Plan is used by North Carolina in order to collect these Tier 2 reports. It allows the county to have access to all facilities and to see the data they provide. And in turn, the county is able to authorize the emergency responders access to these chemical inventory lists as well as contacts in the event of an emergency. Okay, the hazardous materials facility fee structure is set by North Carolina and is as follows. It's $50 per hazardous substance, $90 per extremely hazardous substance, and it is capped out at $5,000 per reporting site. This changed from last year to where it was $5,000 per reporting entity. Systems will now accept Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and electronic check. Last year, American Express was not accepted. Forsyth County does not charge additional filing fees. There are some that are exempt from paying these fees. However, it's key to note that you are not exempt from filing. Some of those properties that would be exempt would be family farm enterprises, state and local government facilities, federal facilities, nonprofit corporations, commercial fuel stations that are used for fuels only, and motor vehicle dealerships. Now, there are resources out there for additional questions. As mentioned, I could be contacted. The E-Plan and the fee procedures are the same as they were last year with those few minor changes that we pointed out. So it should be very similar if you've already filed in the past. Guidance is available at the North Carolina Emergency Management's Tier 2 website, as is present on the slide there. They offer a F&Q and a video tutorial session. The video tutorials include how to file Tier 2 reports in E-Plan, who needs to pay fees, and how fees are calculated. And also their point of contact, if there's something we can answer in our office, is David Powell, and he's the EPCRA Program Manager. He can be contacted at david.r.powell@ncdps.gov, and his office number is 919-825-2277. And Are there any questions about the Tier 2 filing process? Next, we will hear from the Winston-Salem Fire Department. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Assistant Fire Chief Frank Stowe, and I say welcome to you again. The order of the program today will be as follows. Presenting for the fire department today will be Captain John Pennington, and he will be giving you an update on the Battle of the Badges Holiday Blood Drive. He will be followed by Fire and Life Safety Educator Sabrina Stowe, and she will speak to you about holiday fire safety. After which, we will have a presentation from Battalion Chief Jay Walsh from Fire, Lieutenant Bart Stone from our Police Department, and Deputy Chief Tim Black from Forsyth County Emergency Services. They will give you an update on our active assailant response. We will then hear from Winston-Salem Assistant Police Chief Scott Bricker. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm John Pennington, Engine 10, Country Club in Jonestown, and I'd like to speak to you today about a upcoming event. First time we're going to host it for the city of Winston-Salem. It's called the Battle of the Badges. It's a holiday blood drive, and it's the police versus the fire department. And we're doing this in honor of a fallen brother of ours, Captain Grant Darnell. About 22 years ago, Grant and myself started giving blood, and it just progressed. We invited our families and friends in, and tragically he lost his life, or took his life, 3 years ago. And this is just a way that we can remember him. One day myself and Sergeant Tim Taylor were sitting out at the football field, and I said, Tim, I want to do a blood drive. I said, I'd like to challenge the police department. Let's see who can give the most blood. And we asked for the blessings from our chiefs. Our chief said that would be great if we took it and run with it. So we have. So the blood drive will be held on Wednesday, December the 23rd from 11 a.m. to 4:30, and on Thursday, December 24th from 8 to 1:30. It's open to friends, family, public. We'd love to have you come out. Just come out and support us. We have 150 slots for blood at this time. And right now, the fire department's outnumbering the police department 3-1. So I guess we have a little bragging rights there. But I do see a lot of donors in the house. And I don't see a lot of them in the house that are already on my list. So we would love to have you come out. If you don't do any more than just come out and stop by and hold the guy's hands. So, do we have any questions? All right. This year, let's give something that means something. Give the gift of life. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sabrina Stowe. I'm Fire and Life Safety Educator for the Winston-Salem Fire Department. Just wanted to go over a few things with you this morning. We want to talk about some holiday safety tips, as well as just some general safety things for the entire season. First thing we want to talk about is Christmas tree safety. Want to make sure that when we're putting up those trees that we are at least giving 3 feet of space from any heat source that you may have, including your fireplaces, radiators, heat vents, or candles. Also want to make sure that your tree is not blocking any exits. And if you're going to be having live trees this year, make sure that you're watering those daily and giving them plenty of water so that they don't create a fire hazard. Also, when you're dressing your tree with your lights, make sure that you're using lights that have the UL listing. And also note that there are lights for indoor use and as well as lights for outdoor use. Never use lit candles to decorate your tree. And always turn off the Christmas lights before leaving the room or going to bed. Also want to mention, never burn your pine Christmas trees after the holiday season. I know that in some cultures that is something that is done, but we want to make sure that in the city that they're not being burned after the fact. And you can contact CityLink, and they can give you information on what you can do with those trees for pickup, and also some drop-off locations for those as well. Next thing we want to talk about fireplace and space heater safety. You want to always have your fireplace inspected or serviced by a qualified professional each year. When you're using the fireplace or wood stoves, make sure that you're using dry, seasoned wood. Also, make sure the fireplace screen has a metal or heat-tempered glass and that it is positioned in front of the fireplace. And when emptying out the ashes from your fireplace or your wood stoves, make sure that you're using a metal container that has a lid on it. And when you dispose of those ashes in that container, be sure to place that outside of the home, at least 10 feet away from the home or any kind of storage buildings that you may have. Also, don't use a vacuum cleaner or a shop vac to dispose of or take care of those ashes. You don't want to have any hot embers that may still be in there that can cause a fire after the fact. Also want to talk about space heaters. And remember, the key word in that is space. Space heaters do need space. Make sure that you have those at least 3 feet away from anything that can burn, any combustible items, your curtains, your furniture, yourself, your kids. If you're going to be using any type of fuel heater, make sure you're using the right fuel. A lot of times people make a mistake and put gasoline in kerosene heaters. Want to make sure you don't make that mistake. And you always want to fill those outside of the home when the container is cool. Always plug in the electric heaters directly into a wall socket, not into extension cords. And you also want to make sure those are turned off before you leave the room or before you go to bed as well. Next thing we want to talk about is candles. You want to keep those at least 12 inches away from anything that can burn. Use sturdy candle holders that won't tip over, and make sure you're placing those on a sturdy, uncluttered surface. If you have a patient in the home that's using an oxygen tank, you want to make sure that you don't use candles at all in the home. Don't leave a child in the room with a burning candle, and you want to make sure that you keep those matches and lighters well away from the child, preferably high up in a locked cabinet. And even more important, just use flameless candles when you can. They do make those to look and smell like real candles. Other thing we want to talk about is cooking fires. That continues to be a #1 problem, not only in our city, but across the country. In Winston-Salem, we responded to 98 cooking-related fires last year, and so far we've already responded to 100 cooking-related fires. Unattended cooking is the #1 reason for most of those fires. We do recommend that you install a stovetop fire suppression device over the cooktop to take care of the unattended cooking issues or unattended cooking that results in a fire. Here's a photo of a recent fire that we had where there was no fire suppressor in the home. And if you can see the damage that it caused, and on the next slide it's a little bit closer, you can see right over the stove how that's got a considerable amount of damage and destruction to the home. And then on the next slide you'll see where one of the fire suppressors was used. There's minimal damage, there's minimal cleanup, and of course minimal loss of life and anything in your home. So we do recommend, there's 2 products that are out on the market right now. One is called the Stovetop Fire Stop, and there's the web information for that one, as well as the Auto Out system. We do have a limited amount of those available for residents in our area. If you'll contact our Fire and Life Safety Division at 336-773-7965, and we can get those in your home as well. Right now, those are primarily available on those companies' websites, and there may be some in some of the home improvement stores, but primarily they're going to be available online. Next thing we want to talk about is just another battle of the badges. If you want to say, the fire department and the police department are going to be playing in a charity basketball game on this Friday. That's going to take place at 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the at the Carver High School. That's going to be at 3545 Carver School Road. This is going to be to benefit the Peace Toys for War Toys charity. And entrance into the game would require a peace toy that can be used to give to children who will trade in a war toy. So if you would just come out and support that effort, the fire department and the police department, charity game, 5:30 p.m. on this Friday at Carver High School Gymnasium. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Bart Stone, and I'm with the Special Operations Division of the Police Department. With the recent events that have occurred nationally and even internationally, considering active assailant events, the question came up as to what we're doing in our community in Winston-Salem and Forsyth County as to how we may have prepared for such an incident. Rest assured, for the last going on 15 years, we have trained to respond to such incidents, going back all the way to Columbine High School tragedy. We're fortunate in our community to have the resources that we do have. They have especially the level of cooperation between the agencies of fire, EMS, and police, and to have the training that we have been afforded, especially here recently. Back in 2014, the Forsyth County Emergency Management coordinated training for us up in Emmitsburg, Maryland, for 75 representatives from our city. That's everything from first responders to elected officials, city officials, emergency management, the hospitals, information technology, personnel, utilities. Got to attend a week-long training up there to prepare ourselves for the challenges that would occur in an active assailant event and all the stakeholders that would be involved in such an event. Since that time, we've expounded upon our training. This year, it's even more comprehensive. We've already gotten close to 300 firefighters, which is every firefighter through the training, over 150 EMS responders, and then starting in January, the police department will put every officer through a coordinated response to an active assailant event.
Tim Black, Deputy Chief of EMS. While this is unique, I would like to say that we work together every day. This event is unique because we have a fourth party there creating harm, but on a daily basis we work together. Probably yearly we get together to train together. This is a special event for us, and we work well together.
I'm Jay Walsh, I'm Battalion Chief with the Winston-Salem Fire Department. As my colleagues already said, training in these interdepartment agencies is nothing new. We have been working consistently on every scene from auto wrecks to fires to pretty much everything for years. The big part now is we have ramped up our type of training to assure the citizens of Winston-Salem that they're getting the best service that they can. And in that, we've spent a dramatic amount of time as all three agencies doing hands-on training. And I mean, that gets down to a lot of time that we've spent together. We're forming bonds, we're getting to know each other a little bit better, and we're getting that level of training that we have never been able to get from years to come. And this is nothing new. We're not really developing this training just out of nowhere. Several of us, all of us that you see up here, the state of North Carolina has a board and has a working group. Forsyth County has a working group that deals with nothing but active assailant events. And all of us sit on those boards to try to keep up with those trends, to kind of figure out what's going on in the country as things change, as some of the types of events change. Our training needs to change. And we're on top of that all the time as we go to some of these boards and some of these working groups. Recently, we sat down with TV13 and marketing with Winston-Salem. They did a phenomenal job. We created a training video that is specific to just responders. And in that training video, you can kind of see the cooperation that all three departments, fire, EMS, and law enforcement, has to make sure that everybody, every responder out there that wants access to this type of training can get it. And we've got a little snippet of that training we'd like to show you. It's not the full length, obviously, for reasons, but just to kind of give you a general idea of how it went, let me just show you a little bit of what we have.
white male suspect was seen going through the front door carrying a pistol.
And it was fire and EMS and RTF 1 ready to roll.
Okay, I got direct pressure on the. Let's go ahead and get the turn place. Yes, sir. Mark, go ahead and prepare the back one. Clear that room and stand by. RTF 1's command, notify EMS. Got one take. On that door. Fire in.
Keep that pressure there.
Okay, bleeding still controlled. Good job on the train kit.
Branch out of Stone.
Stone, go ahead.
Victim outside of room 101 has been passed off to EMS for transport.
10-4, first patient out with EMS.
So as you see, that's just a very small part of the overall training video that we did for the responders. And this is not also just a Winston-Salem thing. We are also working with the county agencies, other agencies that want to become involved to get the training. And some people look at this and they wonder, you know, how is fire, how is EMS really involved in this when they start looking on the national news? Well, you have to start thinking that there's over 300 trained firefighters in the city of Winston-Salem, and those are North Carolina emergency medical technicians. You couple that along with Forsyth County EMS and the paramedics, it only makes sense to get them inside, to get them in there to get patient care for that survivability rate. It increases that for the victims tremendously. So that fast response that you're going to get from all agencies working together, police, fire, and EMS, is basically what our goal is to increase that survivability rate. So as you can kind of see, the program that we're continuously working on, it's ever evolving. There is training that's pretty much going on day to day as new trends, as new things come up, that we all discuss it. We look at how we want to change our training and how we want to incorporate new thoughts and new ideas into it. So it's something that will continuously happen day to day, month to month, and year to year as needed. Gentlemen, you have any other thing? That's all I have. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, just to be clear, so this new training kind of entails EMS and fire going into active shooter situations while there is still potentially a threat, so they can get in there and respond to people?
Yes. Correct. Basically, you know, what we've done in the past is an event such as this, law enforcement would come in, they would secure the scene completely. Fire and EMS would basically wait until that area is completely secure before we'd make any kind of entry. Basically what's happening there is, you know, people are bleeding out. There are certain things, the survivability rate drops tremendously. So in this sense, yes, EMS and fire, with a lot of coordinated training, are going to be entering into zones, basically into areas with law enforcement support to extract victims and to give basic medical care to get them out as fast as we can.
But this hasn't gone as far as like specialized teams of fire and EMS that may be armed and going in. These are you guys are unarmed when you're going in.
Correct.
This is unarmed medics and firefighters going in. The goal is to train everyone because you can't have a specialty team around every corner. And, we don't know what school or what building is going to be where the event's going to take place. So we have to take our resources that we have that are coordinated from various parts of the county and have them respond to the event and have them ready to respond into the event.
Is this something that you guys have additional protection, like bulletproof vests or anything like that? Are you wearing different gear when you go in?
They'll have the force protection of law enforcement, is what they're going in with. And they're going into areas where there's not a viable threat at that specific time, but areas that have already been cleared.
So as far as like your workers, fire and EMS workers, it's not necessarily something that maybe some of them thought they were signing up to do. Maybe some of the firefighters thought that they were going in just to fight fires or something like that. I mean, how have they responded to that?
The response has been exceptional. I mean, I can pretty much say that we've done a lot of training with everybody in the fire department along with EMS, and our people are committed to save lives, 100%. And knowing the training that they've got, the force protection they get with police officers, has worked seamlessly, and they are prepared to do what they need to do to protect the citizens. Any other questions?
I would ask you, you say that you've been doing this for years. What is different about the training now than when you first started doing it?
Our tactics are ever evolving, like Chief Walsh said. Has the bad guys using different tactics, we also have to adapt our tactics. There's best practices that are suggested from FEMA and interagency boards and other federal agencies across the country as we do this, and we adopt those best practices. We're out kind of on the forefront of this right now here in Winston-Salem and within the state and nationally. So we like to think that being proactive in our strategies to respond, and as we adapt our practices and response tactics, that we stay out in front on that.
Can you give an example of what is kind of the different thinking now, how it has evolved, what you would do differently on a scene now than you might have done 5-10 years ago?
I'm not sure specifically law enforcement or interagency.
Yeah, I mean, any of you, but
It goes way back to Columbine, when it was really realized that the law enforcement response was inadequate. So we've changed our response. And, with rapid deployment training and what have you, without getting into all the details of the last 15 years, it's constantly evolving. The news in Paris, in San Bernardino, in Colorado Springs, we all learn from these events. And so hopefully that tailors our response to be more effective.
have you had an opportunity to put this training in place? I'm thinking, for example, when there was a shooting out at Carver School, I don't know how much of that was treated as an active shooter or not, because that was one victim essentially, but.
Right. By the definition, it wasn't an active shooter event at Carver High School a few years ago. We employed some tactics to ensure the safety of that school, and some of those tactics mirrored active assailant response.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions?
I got one. What have your agencies done to communicate or specific training you've done? Like, for instance, in California, they threw a curve at the first responders. They left bombs and IDs and booby traps and everything. Do you have a lot of training to some of the EMS or fire to spot things like this that y'all might have missed, the police department might have? What kind of training y'all done to communicate stuff like that? Because that is a new curve that's been thrown at you.
We do. As you probably saw a little bit in that short video, there have been a lot of hands-on training with all three departments, fire, EMS, and police. And in that training, the police department has taken a lot of good care to get EMS and fire to understand what to look for, to look out for nuances that you might not necessarily, that we would really consider a threat on a typical fire scene or a typical EMS scene. They have spent a lot of time working with us to make sure that we understand those things and communicate those back to them immediately to make sure we're not putting emergency personnel into danger.
And also, related to San Bernardino, I think there was more talk after that shooting about if you're in a situation like that and you're not one of you guys, you're a civilian, what you can do. Do you have any suggestions about if there's a shooting, what can the average person who's involved in that do?
There's basically a video that is out on the internet, and it's been out for several years now, the Run, Hide, Fight video, and any citizen can get online and they can look that video up. It's called Run, Hide, Fight, and it is nationally adopted, and that is for civilians, and it breaks down, it's a very short video, very similar to what you saw there, that breaks down basically what you need to do, what you need to look for as a civilian in the event that this type of a incident happens. It's a great video. It's received a lot of national recognition. That's pretty much where we're going to suggest most citizens go out and they look at that and get that understanding in that video, because it's going to help us in our response also.
Just one last thing. We talked to the governor a few days ago, and he was really talking about how when there are threats like this, a lot of the times it's the agencies on the local level that may be able to weed it out before it happens, or obviously they would be the first ones to find out about it at that time. Can you guys talk maybe a little bit about what you need the public to do? Basically, see something, say something type deal?
That's basically it. You know, you see something bad, do something good, report it, let us know about it. We're lucky, again, with our agency and the resources that we have have joint task force officers that work with the FBI. So we're getting information from them and from Isaac in North Carolina. So we're doing a lot better information sharing. That's one of the things that came out of 9/11, is that these aren't really secrets. We don't keep them close to the vest anymore. There's a lot of interagency sharing on the federal, state, and local level.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Excellent job. Good morning. I'm Assistant Chief Scott Bricker with the Winston-Salem Police Department, and we're going to begin the police-specific portion of the press conference. First off, I want to open by thanking all members of the police department for their continued ongoing dedication and service to the citizens of Winston-Salem. We also want to begin our portion of the conference in recognition of the fallen officers that we recognize for the month of December. We'll first honor Patrolman John Marsden Sampson, end of watch Sunday, December 8th, 1940. Cause of death, vehicle pursuit. Date of incident, Thursday, December 5th, 1940. Patrolman Sampson succumbed to injuries received 3 days earlier when his motorcycle struck a bread truck at 16th Street and Patterson Avenue while he was pursuing a speeding vehicle. Next, we will honor Sergeant Leland Glenn Teague, end of watch Monday, December 26, 1927. Cause of death, gunfire. Date of incident, Monday, December 12, 1927. Sergeant Teague succumbed to gunshot wounds received 2 weeks earlier when he and several other officers entered a home on Oak Street while searching for a suspect wanted for murdering a security guard. Let us please pause for a moment of silence to honor these fallen officers. Thank you. The police department's presentation today will consist of several presenters. First off will be Captain Doug Nance. He will be performing an overview of holiday safety tips. He'll also provide some information in regards to being a victim of an auto break-in. We'll also have Corporal Rudy Richardson providing information on safe winter driving habits. And then we'll have a combined presentation on some of the Winston-Salem Police Department's community outreach initiatives. That presentation will be consisting of Community Resources Specialist Pam Peoples-Joyner, Corporal Mark Slater, and then Corporal Josh Henry. First up will be Captain Doug Nance.
Good morning. I'm Captain Doug Nance of District 3. I don't think my presentation will be as worthwhile as the joint presentation a moment ago, but there is some worthwhile facts to be mentioned. Over the past couple of months, we've addressed the holiday safe shopping tips, as well as suggestions to reduce the likelihood you will be a victim of an auto breaking. I would like to mention a few of these again as a reminder of how important your actions are in diminishing these opportunities. The first is situational awareness, which is basically the frame of mind in which you are aware of your surroundings, who may be a threat, or where you might find help. Therefore, always remain alert and always survey your surroundings. Furthermore, when possible, shop with a friend or a family member. Do not carry large amounts of cash. It is preferred that you use debit and credit cards for all purchases. Ladies, secure your purses. Hold them tightly under your arm and do not leave them unattended. That is the number one cause of purse snatchings in the city. Vehicle safety tips: always park in a well-lit area. Lock your cars and keep your windows rolled up. Place bags and gifts in your trunk regardless of their value. Remember where you park and avoid strangers or anyone who is more interested in your activity than their own. A few home safety tips to be included. Do not leave packaging material, especially that of high-end merchandise, exposed at the curb. It advertises what items of value are in your home. Break boxes down and conceal them in trash receptacles or trash bags. Always lock your doors and windows, even if you are leaving momentarily. Use timers on your lights and electronics to give the illusion someone is home. And most importantly, and I stress this, network with your neighbors to watch your property, collect your mail, and accept packages in your absence. This is a valuable tool not only during the Christmas season, but year-round. One drive-in safety tip I might mention, especially during the holiday season. As Christmas draws near, traffic will only become more congested. Prior to entering an intersection, you must make sure it's clear. North Carolina Statute 20-142.5 prohibits any motorist from entering an intersection where there was insufficient space to accommodate that vehicle, whereby obstructing the passage of other vehicles. Currently, the police department is utilizing a holiday task force, which is comprised of additional officers assigned to areas within the city that have traditionally experienced a high volume of traffic associated with holiday shopping. Fortunately, this group has been in place since Thanksgiving and has not reported any trends that should be an alarm to the public. However, as always, the police department encourages you to remain diligent as the shopping season becomes more hectic as Christmas approaches. I'm going to switch to auto braking tips, which is actually very similar to some of the holiday shopping tips. The two most important are lock your car doors and always remove any items of value from your vehicle, or at a minimum, put them in the trunk. The overwhelming majority of auto break-ins in the city involves thieves randomly checking for open doors. Once inside, they will ransack your car for any items of value. What's most concerning when they do this is that people often fail to realize that they have left their extra car keys, home keys, computers, iPods, cell phones, and even guns in their car. For this reason, the police department recommends that you develop the habit of always locking your car doors, even while it's in your driveway at home. Be mindful that locking your car doors is only the first step in preventing you from being a victim. The second step is making sure you don't leave items of value in plain view while in your vehicle. Although it is rare that a thief will elect to break a car window, it does occur in situations where items of significant value are left exposed. Recently, several churches have experienced a number of auto breakings where thieves have targeted church members during both morning and evening services. This is a reminder that there are no sacred grounds when it comes to a thief, so always lock your doors. All of these crime prevention tips provided and many more can be found on the Winston-Salem Police Department's website, www.wspd.org. These tips are in both English and Spanish and can be considered very useful not only for the holiday season, but year-round. Are there any questions? At this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Corporal Richardson of the Traffic Enforcement Unit.
Good morning. I'm Corporal Richardson with the Winston-Salem Police Department Special Operations Division Traffic Unit. Today I'm going to be talking to you about winter driving safety tips, and some of the things that I'm going to be saying today are probably things that we already know about, but sometimes we need to be reminded because we get in a hurry, we get routine driving in the same location the same way all the time. So when we're talking today, what I'm talking about is forming a plan of action for your winter driving. To start with, we got to make sure that our car is in good working order before we go out and drive. So wherever you get your car serviced, if you haven't done it already this year, take it to the dealership or wherever you normally do it, or if you do it yourself. And there's two things that you need to think about first. That's the level of the antifreeze, the mixture, and your battery. These are the first two things that get affected whenever we have a sudden cold snap or the weather gets very cold. If you don't have the proper antifreeze level in your car, it could freeze and be very costly for you. Of course, the battery, whenever the batteries get a little bit weak, you don't usually find out until it finds you and leaves you stranded on the side of the road or somewhere that you don't expect. So think about that when you're servicing your car. One of the more important things are your windshield wiper blades. Sometimes you don't think about replacing those until you have ice on the windshield, or you drag them across the ice in the morning trying to clear your windshield off, and it damages them and then impairs your vision when you're trying to drive during winter weather, rain, sleet, snow, or what have you. Another very, very important item that gets neglected all the time until it sneaks up on you are your tires. Your proper tire tread wear has to be looked at. There's a lot of ways you can check this. Some people don't understand it, but most tires have wear bands that you can look at. But you can just go to your tire professional and let them look at your tires and see if they're adequate for any driving condition. So consult those people and make sure that your car is ready for winter driving weather. As far as setting up your car for winter weather or any time of the year, some things that are good to have in your car would be a flashlight, maybe a blanket or some extra warm clothing, some jumper cables, a charged cell phone. I've come up on so many wrecks where people wanted to call for help and they wanted to use my phone, or I have to call somebody for them because their battery's dead in their cell phone. Remember, cold weather is going to run that battery down even further if you're standing outside your car trying to get some help or get your car unstuck from the side of the road. Kitty litter and a shovel, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the part of my presentation we talk about when you actually get stuck in the snow or ice. We've already, even though the winter's a little bit slow getting started with us this year, we have had some freezing weather in the mornings. So when you head out in the mornings or any other time of the day, some of you have the temperature gauge in your car, or hopefully you took the time to look at the app on your phone or on the weather on the news in the morning. If our temperatures are at freezing or below, even though we don't have anything on the roadway that you think of, like think for example this morning with the fog, that's a perfect recipe with freezing weather to have bridges and overpasses to be frozen. So you're driving down the road thinking everything's fine, listening to the radio, cutting the time as close like we always do, trying to get to work, and then you hit that overpass or bridge and there's ice on it, and you're in a wreck and tore your car up and hopefully not hurt. So just think about those kind of things. When we have the freezing temperatures, even though in the morning it might be below freezing and we're going to have 60 degrees and you see water running across the road that morning, just go ahead and assume that that water's frozen and it's ice. Slow down a little bit and make preparations to drive through that safely so you don't get into an accident. So when the forecasters start talking about the next storm, and it might even have a name, those are the ones we really need to think about. We don't want to get caught off guard. Let's have a plan whenever the forecasters start talking about winter weather. So what are we going to do? Listen to the weather forecast. Have a plan for yourself. Think ahead of what you can do. First of all, what do you need in your house? Bread and milk, right? Go get your bread and milk or whatever it is that you need in your house and have it ahead of time. You're going to probably use it anyway. And around here in North Carolina, if we have a winter storm, snow, ice, or whatever it might be, you might be stranded at the most, maybe a day, unless you live on one of those secondary roads that you can't get out of. So just plan ahead for that if we think we're going to have some weather coming in. Get gas for your car ahead of time. So if you have to retreat to your car, you do end up having to drive, you already got the gas. That's not an extra location that you have to go. We prefer anybody to not have to drive when winter weather comes in. That's the ideal situation. So when you're planning and you think you're going to have to drive, let's go ahead and listen to the weather forecast ahead of time. So let's say that it's Wednesday today and we're going to have a winter storm come in this Friday. I think, oh my gosh, I've got to work. Well, what time is the winter storm coming in? Am I going to be able to make it to work that morning? Yes, it's not coming in until that afternoon. We had a terrible storm last year come in about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was terrible, treacherous weather and road conditions about 5 o'clock. We had a terrible time getting everybody home. Cars were piled up all over the place. So what can you do to prevent that is maybe you can leave work a little bit early. You know, look at the weather on your computer or maybe glance out the window if you can and try to make preparations to go ahead and leave early before the road gets slick and not so much traffic's out there. What if it's nighttime? And the weather people say, hey, we're going to have a bad storm tomorrow morning. Go ahead and get up early the next morning. Plan ahead, get up early, give yourself extra time. Don't worry about going by to get your coffee the next morning. Try to think of the best route you can do to get to work. So that comes to another point there. Which way do you go to work every morning? Most of us have a route that we go every morning to work. It's usually the shortest route. Try to use the primary roads if you can. Stay off of the shortcut secondary roads. The state and city typically plow and salt the primary roads first. You're going to have more traffic on the primary roads, so hopefully they'll clear first. If you do get into a situation you need some help, maybe there's more people on the primary roads that can stop and give you a hand. So what about hills and grades that you're on? If you have a hill or a grade that you're going to be stopping on, maybe there's another way that you can go to keep yourself from having to stop on that hill or slide on the hill. What about stop signs? You're going to need to give yourself extra room to stop. When you're coming to a stop sign, slow down, push the brakes lightly, and bring your car to a controlled stop. Before you move, even though it may be a four-way stop sign, make sure that the traffic coming in the other direction is going to be able to come to a complete stop, not slide into the intersection and hit you before they go through. So that's a stop sign. What about the stop lights? Say you're coming down Haynes Mall Boulevard or wherever you might envision, and you have a stoplight ahead. It's way down the road, but it's red. Probably the best action is to just let off the accelerator a little bit and slow down, and maybe you can catch that light turning green for you. Or if it doesn't turn green, maybe you can slow down, you can get slowed down enough that you can stop. So you do time it to where you get the green light. Trust me, not everybody's going to be following the same safety tips that we talk about this morning or that we might be thinking about. So before you do proceed through that green light, make sure that cars coming from the opposite directions are able to get stopped. You don't meet up with them in that intersection and have a bad accident. I have people all the time on these wrecks that I stop at. When we investigate the wrecks, tell me all the time, well, I just wanted to get out and see if I could drive. Or I just wanted to go to the grocery store for something I didn't really need. So think about these kind of things before you get out on the road driving, because it's probably something we can wait for. You might have to eat or drink something at home that you don't really want, but it's probably the safest thing to do. If you live working in another city, say you're traveling from Greensboro, or you're going from Winston to Greensboro or Clemens, and you're on the highway and you're used to using the cruise control and listening to your radios, maybe talking to somebody on the cell phone, those are probably some things you need to think about not doing in the winter weather. The roads are slick, don't use the cruise control. Using the manually operating the accelerator might be the extra seconds you need to regain control of your car, just letting off the accelerator if it starts to spin. The cruise control is going to continue to let the back tires or the front tires, whichever pull on your car, spin. Don't use the cruise control. Stay off the cell phone. You should be off the cell phone anyway when you're driving, but you need to divide your complete attention to driving, especially in winter weather. So if you do slide, your car starts to skid, say your car goes to the left or it starts to skid to the right. Don't panic, don't slam on brakes, don't suddenly steer the car to the left or the right. The car rear end goes out like this, steer in the direction of the skid. This is a gradual turn into that skid. What that's going to do is hopefully keep the car from rotating any further, let off the accelerator, the car can hopefully slow down a little bit and regain traction, and you can regain control of the car. I know that's a perfect situation, but it works. So if it doesn't work and you run off to the side of the road and you get stuck in the snow, or you might just be at a stop sign that you can't get started again at, what can you do? Well, if you have a car that's automatic and you're in drive might not be the best way to start or to get out of the snow if you're stuck. Maybe just pull the car down into second gear. When you stop and drive, the car automatically goes to first gear. That's the most pulling power, that's the most starting power. The wheels that pull are going to be more prone to spin in first gear. If you just pull that car down into second gear, those wheels are not going to turn as fast, they're not going to want to spin as fast, and you'd really be surprised how easy your car will pull away from a stuck situation if you just put it in second gear. Just don't forget to put it back in drive when you start going. The same thing with a manual transmission, maybe second gear starting off if your car is able to do that with a manual transmission. It really makes a big difference. So if you're just really stuck and you run off the side of the road and you're in a snowbank, this is where the kitty litter and the shovel come in I talked about a few minutes ago. You might have to get out and dig some snow away from the tires on your car, considering that you're in a safe location that you can do this. You may use the shovel to dig some snow away from the tires, get some of the kitty litter, put it on the ground, and that'll help your car get traction on the pavement so you can get it out of that situation. Sometimes it doesn't always work. Sometimes you're really stuck. And this is the point where you should have told somebody that you're going to be traveling. I'm going to be traveling from point A to point B, and this is what time I'm expecting to get there. And have that person on your phone that you can call them on your charged cell phone. Some of you may use an auto club. Just keep in mind, if you're using the auto clubs or any other tow company that you may have on your speed dial or whatever, they're extremely busy during these times of the year. Number one, people's cars froze up, they got to go tow it. Number two, the battery's dead, they got to go tow it. Number three, they didn't stop in time and hit somebody and they're in a wreck, they got to go tow them. Number four, they ran off the side of the road and got stuck, which is probably going to be the last person that they're going to go try to get. So if you get into that situation, try to have somebody that can come help you with a four-wheel drive and get you out somewhere you can go, or you've got some warm clothing you can resort to. If you have to sit in the car and it's safe to sit in the car, make sure that you didn't run into some snow bank on the side of the road that's clogged your exhaust pipe. You're going to sit in the car and asphyxiate yourself on carbon monoxide. So use your exhaust or your shovel to get away from that exhaust right there. Wear your seatbelt when you're out driving. Your seatbelt's designed to work in conjunction with your airbag and give these devices an opportunity to save your life. Plan ahead, use common sense, and be careful when you're out driving this season. Thank you. Next up is going to be Ms. Peoples-Joyner and Corporal Slater and Corporal Henry.
Pam Peoples-Joyner, Community Relations Specialist, Winston-Salem Police Department. The Winston-Salem Police Department and the Winston-Salem Human Relations Department will be hosting a Trust Talks tomorrow, Thursday, December the 10th at Polo Recreation Center from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. A goal of Trust Talks is to build a level of trust and mutual understanding between police and the community at large by reaching out directly to citizens. If interested in attending, one can contact P. Joyner at wspd.org or 773-7962. The Winston-Salem Police Department, the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Gang Steering Committee, and the Center for Community Safety at Winston-Salem State University will be sponsoring the first annual Community Awareness Networking Conference. That conference is scheduled for December 17th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at St. Peter's Rural Outreach Center, 3683 Old Lexington Road. The purpose of the conference will give nonprofit agencies the opportunity to collaborate to develop a community family-oriented plan to reach at-risk youth and reduce recidivism. Again, if interested in attending, one can contact 336-773-7962 or pjoyner@wspd.org. Our Stuffed Patrol Car Annual Initiative. Under the leadership of Lieutenant Tyrone Phelps and Sergeant Mark Snow, the WSPD coordinated our second annual Stuff the Patrol car, and each day the car was overflowing with toys. Today, Wednesday, December the 9th, is the last day of the campaign, and we will be at Walmart on Haynes Mill Road from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Thanks to all the citizens who donated toys and toiletries to assist the children and elderly citizens in our community. The toys will be delivered on December 21st at 10 a.m. to the Department of Social Services. Any questions?
Good morning, I'm Mark Slater, currently serve with the training staff, the training division of the police department. Part of my primary duties are to, as a main instructor over the Basic Law Enforcement Training Academy, we also provide training to all the in-service folks. What I wanted to talk to you about right now is BLET Class 69, which is currently in progress. Something that's instilled and we try to instill in the trainees when they're in school is it's not just about the job. We take hours upon hours, we teach them how to shoot, we teach them how to drive, hopefully better, teach them how to interact with people. If you're not careful during that process, you can create somewhat of a robot. That they go out, they do the job, and they go home, they have no connection to the community. One thing Sergeant Wright worked with Class 68 is community projects. We wanted to expand upon that this class, so they've chosen several different programs to take part in. The first one is the RAP program, that is Relatives as Parents program. Basically what that does is we volunteered to spend our time and money as a group to basically support a person who is over 60 years old and they have found themselves in a second parental role. They've already had their kids have grown up, had grandkids, and now that grandparent is all of a sudden thrust back into the parental role. They submitted a list of items that they would request they receive for Christmas. And when you look at the list, what really shocked me was it's a lot of stuff that we take for granted. Dishes, sheets, bed covers for the bed. There's not a lot of frivolous things that sometimes you see on some of the lists when you're trying to help folks in the community. BLET Class 69 went above and beyond what we expected them to do. I got a list from the Department of Social Services. They purchased everything on that family's wish list. This is out of their own money, on their own time. We also plan to deliver those items to the Department of Social Services on December 21st at 10 o'clock as well. Something else they're going to take part in is called Heroes and Helpers. That is a partnership with law enforcement and Target. Basically, our recruits and our trainees will go to Target December the 18th on University Parkway at 7 o'clock in the morning. They are paired with children who are selected from the Project Hope program through the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. Target will donate gift cards to those kids, and the officers are paired with those kids, and they're given a chance to shop with those kids and spend that gift card. I've participated in that program in the past. It's very rewarding. These kids, sometimes you would think they're given a $100 gift card and they just go buy toys. One of the things that they're told is you must buy one thing for your parent. And typically that's the first thing that you see them do. They go buy that one present for their parent, and then they start with their brothers and sisters. They start buying things for their siblings. They save themselves for last. So it's a very rewarding program. BLET Class 69 is also going to do a shoestring bag project. They're a lot of the small little backpacks, they're collecting those. They're stuffing those with things that we take for granted as well, gloves, toboggans, things to keep you warm, as well as general health care items. And they'll be passing those out to subjects in the community. Our training academy is currently located on Patterson Avenue, and that is between two of the homeless shelters. So they'll be going out and handing those out as well. Thank you.
My name is Corporal Josh Henry. I'm with the Downtown Bike Patrol. We are involved in the blanket program. This is the second year that we've been doing this. The Bike Patrol noticed that we have a need in our homeless and underprivileged folks out there that we deal with that need stuff. Some of them don't sleep in the shelters, some of them sleep outside. So we have come up with a blanket program to hand out to people in need that come by the office that we donate. We solicited from the public gently used blankets and new blankets, hats and gloves this year we do also, to give out to them. We've had families come by the office, we've had individuals come by the office. Some do live in a house and say they can't afford a blanket, so it's not just for people that sleep outside. The community has been amazing. We've had the public, we've had churches, and even some schools have been involved in our donation process. Blankets can be dropped off by the Public Safety Center here at 725 North Cherry, at the City Hall at 101 North Main Street, or the Downtown Bike Patrol office at 414 North Cherry Street. Thank you.
Also wanted to thank the fire department for their role also assisting with the Heroes and Helpers program. That will conclude the December Public Safety News Conference. At this time, I will open it up one more time for any questions for any of the respective groups that presented today. Yes, sir.
Are you familiar enough with what's going on Stonegate Lane right now to comment on it?
I have Captain Katrina Thompson here, who her personnel are on the scene in addition to our Field Services Bureau, so I'll let her come up and provide a quick overview of that circumstance.
Thank you, Chief Bricker. Good morning. Winston-Salem police officers responded to 484 Stonegate Lane on a reported breaking and entering this morning. Upon arrival, officers were advised that the suspect had also discharged a firearm during the incident. Officers located the victim, who had not been shot but had sustained non-life-threatening injuries during the incident. Preliminary investigation reveals that the victim arrived at the residence and possibly interrupted the housebreaking in progress. The victim was transported to a local medical facility for treatment. The suspects are believed to be a white male, 6 feet tall, wearing a hoodie, as well as a black male, 6 feet tall, also wearing a hoodie. Although the suspects were last seen running on Cliffdale Avenue, it is believed that they are associated with a crimson red colored sports car with a large spoiler on the back. The investigation is still in its preliminary stages, and the Winston-Salem Police Department's Criminal Investigations Division is conducting the investigation into this crime. We are asking that anyone with information regarding this incident contact the Winston-Salem Police Department at 336-773-7700 or Crime Stoppers at 336-727-2800. Thank you.
We had another question here, sir.
I thought about asking this question while the three gentlemen were up here talking about the response training, but I felt that you know, based on your position, you might be better able to respond, and that is, every time there's been a shooting, there's been a national debate about guns. I would
Correct.
ask you if you have anything you would like to say about how we're doing keeping guns out of the hands of people who would use them in shootings like this.
Well, obviously, that's a huge item for debate, and there's a lot of public pressure in both directions in the terms of guns and firearm safety. My specific comment to that would be, we want to ensure that our members of the public that do own guns, that they make sure that those guns are secured properly, and that they're also trained properly to use those weapons, because guns that aren't secured properly can, of course, end up in the hands of criminals. And, of course, having a weapon that you're not familiar with creates a hazard to yourself and others that if you're not well equipped to use it. So we're proponents at the police department of knowing what you have, being able to use it properly, and then securing it. And then, of course, the police department is also in favor of making sure that we abide by the laws and that we will enforce the laws and regulate the laws pursuant to the firearms. Does that?
Sure. I would
Yes,
ask
sir.
you one more question. That is the gun buyback program.
Correct.
How effective do you think that has been? I know there've been several of them.
Right. You know, throughout the state, and as you're probably well aware, Winston-Salem did a gun buyback in the past. We feel as though that was a worthwhile endeavor because of the fact the number of firearms that were turned in. I would definitely say that a large portion of those weapons probably were not being secured or cared for properly. So if personnel do have weapons that they do have in their possession, they're more than willing to contact the police department. We will take weapons and keep them or dispose of them for residents in the community. And we also have still have a program where we will provide a safety mechanism similar to a trigger guard lock or a cable lock that the citizens could also secure the weapon with. As I mentioned earlier, securing a weapon and making sure that it's not accessed by a child or comes into contact with someone that has, you know, criminal mindset that they want to use it in the commission of a crime, we definitely want to prevent that. So securing it properly, if someone can't afford a gun safe or some other type of lockbox, these are alternative methods that we can provide.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Well, this will conclude the Public Safety Conference for the month of December. We thank everyone for attending. We wish everyone to have a Merry Christmas, a safe and joyous holiday season, and we will see you back here next year for the January conference. Thank you very much.